Howdy, it's Jim Arado, and look over those buildings. You can see the very top of the state capital of Michigan. Right there it is. We're in Lansing, Michigan. We're about to, well, there we are. We are inside of the Capitol building, which has gone through some renovations. And this is one of those states where I've actually been through Lansing a few times, and we had not had a moment to check out the Capitol. So we finally did that on this particular day. And we were on a little bit of a time limit, but we still had a nice casual walk through. They had some cool displays. I'll let you look at those while I tell you a little bit about our visit. As always, feel free to mute me and just read the informational signs there if you'd like. But I'll tell you a little bit about this place and a little bit about our trip to Michigan. And I'll just give you a little bit of information there. I hope that's okay. And this would actually be the farthest east we would go in Michigan on this trip. We were mostly going to be over by Traverse City, Grand Rapids, kind of hugging Lake Michigan for most of this trip, which was really fun and exciting. We had a great trip. I'm going to put up some other videos if I haven't already. Michigan is just quickly becoming one of my favorite states. I would put it among my top 5 favorite states that I like to visit. We've got family in Michigan, and we've taken some little short trips up into Michigan, but I need to do some more, just more extended trips. Just a couple quick thoughts about the Capitol and our visit. There was no walking through a metal detector or anything like that on this visit. And I'd say in general most capitals that we visited have that, but some don't, and sometimes it might just be a matter of what time you visit. If there's nobody important there's not a lot going on, they might not have all of that security. I know Vermont, when we visited Vermont's capital, it's always been very laid back and very simple and friendly and open. Other capitals, though, you got to empty your pockets and walk through the metal detectors, and it's never been a problem, and I totally understand that level of security. Also, the people here were exceptionally friendly, and most I'd say the staff at most capitals are exceptionally friendly. They're very pleasant, and they're usually almost appreciative of the fact that you've come in to visit their capital and learn a little bit about the state's history, and that was definitely the case here. I went and talked to some of the staff, and they ended up giving me some postcards and some brochures on the Capitol, and some actually a lot of nice little pamphlets and all about the Capitol, and I appreciated that. On the way out, there wasn't a gift shop or anything like that, and I asked, hey, if you had some more of these postcards, if you had some pins or something like that, I would let you have some of my money. And they told me, well, they do have a gift shop. It's just not right there on the main path. I had to kind of walk out a door, and then they told me to go into another door, and there was a little lady who buzzed me in. She was very sweet, and I went into their, they have a small gift shop / office. I was happy to part with some of my money, and I picked up a really cool book, Lansing and the Civil War by Matthew J. Vanacker. I got a signed copy, and the lady, we were leaving, we were kind of heading out as they were closing up really for tourists, but the lady there asked me if I had met Mr. Vanacker. He was giving tours of the Capitol, and I said, well, I didn't. We kind of did a self-guided tour, but I probably passed him and, passed by him and rubbed elbows with him. I did not see him, though. And I was kind of disappointed because I always loved talking the Civil War with people. And especially now that I've read this book, I really wish I had bumped into him and talked to him a little bit. Because this is just a great book. It's a very nice read-through book. Let me tell you just a little bit about it before I go on with anything else about the Capitol. Of course, Lansing, Michigan, it did not see any action during the Civil War, but of course they were a good northern state, and they sent their sons to go fight for the Union. and he gives some really nice stories as he kind of progresses, telling about Michigan and the Michigan men and their involvement in the Civil War. And the one of the first stories he tells about a brother kind of talking about the call for men to volunteer to go and fight, and he talks about his brother being the first person to sign up, and then others followed. A couple of other stories that really got my attention. There was an account of one of the men from Michigan being at Ford's Theater the night that Lincoln was shot, and that's always just interesting. I love Lincoln and stories about him, and I appreciated that. There was another story about a Michigander who wanted to serve, but he had his little finger was defective. There was something wrong with it. I think it was deformed, and they told him he could not serve with that kind of disability. And he told them, in that case, cut off my finger. I want to serve. And I don't think they did, but I think they admired his bravery, and I think he went on to serve. Another story involved a fellow named John Broad, who was declared dead, but he came back to life. There's also a Lieutenant Whitman, whose remains would lay in the state, they would lay in the House of Representatives in the old Lansing Capitol, and it's, I believe, the only documented case of that ever happening. Another thing that caught my attention was a line. There was a portrait studio, offering to take photos of soldiers before they went off to war, and they literally used a quote about many of them we may never see again. So they're basically trying to encourage soldiers to get their pictures taken because they might die. Anyway, it has just a great book, a very easy read. Of course, it gives a lot of accounts of the men, the units and that kind of thing. But it's just a good book. If you're interested in the Civil War, it's definitely one I would highly recommend. The proceeds from the book, the net proceeds benefit the Save the Battle flags. Of course, every capital has Civil War flags. Yeah, there we go. There's some of them. Check it out. Always a treat seeing those. New Hampshire, that capital really rings in my brain as a capital. It's preserved their Civil War flags. Of course, they have them here too. They have this beautiful central area. Of course, if you've been to other capitals, they have similar, domed rotunda areas. And then, they have the other rooms where all the politics go down. But they're always beautiful. But before I forget, let me give you just a few little facts. Yeah, I don't want to make this. I want this video to be my visit to the Michigan State Capitol, but let me give you a little bit of information just so it's on here. The Michigan State Capitol, this is from Wikipedia. Michigan State Capitol houses legislative branch of the government of the U.S. state of Michigan. Goes on, National Historic Landmark. The first state capitol was in Detroit, the original capital of Michigan, and was relocated to Lansing in 1847. Due to the need to develop the state's western portion and for better defense from British troops stationed in Windsor, Ontario. Yeah, you gotta watch out for those Canadians. And of course, there's a ton of information about the capital, the moves, etc., etc. I always like seeing how the representatives have set up their little stations with and desks with their personal effects, and you can tell who's very far to the left and very far to the right. Of course, Michigan is the I guess you would say the home state of former President Gerald Ford. Definitely a president that I think of as underwhelmingly interesting. I think he's a very interesting man. Definitely came about at a weird time, kind of sandwiched there between Nixon and Carter and all that. Had his hand in the investigation of the JFK assassination. Yeah, he was really there for a lot of stuff, and played football, and also was a model. And there is a presidential library for him in Grand Rapids. I know, just a side note, several years ago we stayed at the Green Mountain Inn in Stowe, Vermont, and they had a kind of a little photo display up. Gerald Ford, before he was famous, back when he was just a model, he had done like a photo shoot there and had stayed at the inn. I love visiting presidential sites, homes, and burial sites. Anything dealing with the president. I always think it's exciting. And yeah, so Michigan has Gerald Ford. And back when I was really into baseball, we stopped in Lansing to check out their baseball team, the Lansing Lugnuts. Really nice little field downtown. Had a good time. And I know they're one of the teams, though, and this sort of thing is becoming more common by the moment, especially with minor league baseball teams. They'll sell the naming rights to the field, and then they'll also sell the naming rights to the stadium. So every time the announcer says, welcome to the Lansing Lugnuts ballpark, at such and such field, it's such and such state. I mean, it's such a mouthful. It really becomes cumbersome. But still, it was a very nice ballpark, nice organization. We had a good time. Oh, and this was the little gift shop I mentioned. I took a couple pictures. Yeah, pretty much that shelf was the gift shop. And they had just a few items, but I definitely had to have my book. And the very sweet lady running this place actually tried to call over to see if Mr. Vanaker was still there to come and say hi to me, but he'd already left for the day. I thought that was just super duper sweet. Anyway, yeah, so that was our visit to the Michigan State Capitol. I'm going to put up some other videos and just about our visit to Michigan. Definitely one of my favorite states, and I don't get up there enough. Do you have any stories about Michigan and the Civil War or the Michigan State House there? Did I miss something? Let me know. I know there's a lot of stuff outside we kind of missed.